Hey, it's Aaron, and I'm coming to you today from the lake. How fancy. And I think it's fitting because I want to talk a little bit about rich people, how they're not spending money, and how that's a financial indicator signaling that we are most certainly entering an economic recession. Now, all of you out there, if you've seen my videos before, if you are working class, you probably already feel an economic recession coming on, or you might already be in an economic recession yourself. You can see that walking down the street everywhere you go. Boarded up buildings are everywhere. People are losing their jobs or having to settle for jobs that are less than what they need to survive. People are taking up more jobs because they can't afford to live, so forth and so on. And it turns out that rich people, on top of all of this, are not buying things. So that's pretty interesting, and it made me kind of want to do a little bit more research and find out exactly why rich people aren't buying things. And it turns out that this trend, and yes, it is a trend, has started all the way back in around 2008 when we had the first financial recession. Now, the reason that this is happening is pretty obvious. If you haven't noticed, there's been an incredible push towards hating the rich lately, and it's not unwarranted. I mean, rich people are basically the reason why we're in this problem currently. The elites have brought us to a point of economic collapse. They brought us to a point of financial ruin, and on top of that, they are destroying the environment and basically pushing their boots down on the working class throat every single day. So clearly there isn't a lot of love for rich people right now. The top 1%, they're looked at as kind of being a parasite class. So this has urged more rich people to stop flaunting their wealth. For a long, long time, there was something called conspicuous rich, that I believe is called conspicuous wealth, where people would flaunt their wealth in their clothing, in their food, in the products that they buy, and in their houses, this sort of thing. So think back to a medieval king. They would have beautiful, lavish clothing, massive jewelry, and probably a great big belly showing that they ate a lot of food that the peasants couldn't afford. Well, doing that sort of thing definitely draws attention, and a lot of people look at that as being not so favorable anymore, because the more people flaunt their wealth, the more everybody looks at them as being kind of terrible. It's not seen in social circles as cool to be saying that, oh, you have all of these different things and you can afford all of this stuff, while a lot of people around you are clearly in financial ruin. So it's led to a culture where rich people are no longer spending money on goods like houses, cars, lavish jewelry, clothing, etc. What they've started to spend their money on is intangible goods. It's become less of a conspicuous wealth and more of an inconspicuous wealth, to what many people from Business Insider were saying. I happened to read a article about this earlier this morning, actually several articles, because I found it just interesting as all hell. So it turns out that rich people aren't spending money on clothing, jewelry, shoes, and houses. They're spending money on things like education. Yeah, that's right. They're actually trying to better educate themselves and make themselves more healthy, more fit. So things like education, gym memberships, and security systems have been on the rise. Now, as far as health benefits go, it's kind of interesting what's been going on. In fact, it kind of blew my mind, and I had to do a bunch of research to find out if the articles that I was even reading were legitimate or not. And it turns out that rich people are doing some really crazy, interesting things when it comes to health. One of those things is something that I believe was called a chronofacial or a chronomassage. I'm sure I'm sure I'm saying that word wrong. I'll put a link in the description box below talking exactly about what this process is. But it's something from like some weird dystopic sci-fi fantasy world where they have this special gun that fires a really, really cold blast of air at rich people's faces while they're, in this fancy massage chair. And the super cold air, which is like minus 160 something degrees, makes their face feel, the skin on their face feel tighter, and it gives them a bit of a warm glow, and it just makes them look younger and more healthy. And that's the big thing about all of this, is that you have to show that you're healthy. Another thing that they're spending a lot of their money on is, like I was saying before, they're spending their more money on security. So instead of flaunting their wealth and having amazing lavish houses, something that they've started to do is make their houses kind of camouflaged within their area. So the top floors of several buildings would be done up with mirrors so it could reflect the foliage around their property to make it obscured and you not be able to actually see from a map image what their house actually looks like. And following along that vein, they've actually started to do something else, which is equally interesting and kind of scary. So they've also started instituting jamming signals around their neighborhoods in gated communities that block the ability for any GPS system to basically bounce back their location. So there are entire communities, I believe there's something like, it's called Hidden Hills in the Beverly Hills. I think it's in Beverly Hills, something like that. There are entire hidden communities of rich people now that you can't actually see through Google satellite imaging searches. You can drop down and try to do a street view, but they don't even allow the Google image car to drive through their neighborhoods, so you can't even get a street view. Very interesting, very interesting. On top of all of this, they're also buying extremely lavish panic rooms. That's a really big thing now. It's not just something you hear about in movies. Rich people are really spending a lot of money on panic rooms and even underground houses and facilities that are completely obscured from view from above ground. Very interesting. And so getting back to this whole thing about education, and sorry, this video is going to be a little bit rambly because there's a lot to touch on, but I'm close to finish now. Going back to the education thing, so education has become so hard for regular people to get that rich people are seeing that as being a status symbol, and they're spending millions of dollars moving their houses to be around very high quality preschools and elementary schools. They're spending immense amounts of money donating to these schools and making sure that their children get in to the fanciest, most prestigious of schools. It's similar to what's always happened, of course, but it's been amped up to a more massive scale at this point. Rich people, when they are not doing other things, they've taken up taking classes and furthering their knowledge and so forth, so they can have a higher status symbol as well. And it's really interesting because none of these things have to do necessarily with tangible items. They're just status symbols that the rich have been using to kind of portray their wealth outwardly. A lot of things happen to do with Instagram actually as well. Going back to the health industry, they are going to special, extremely extravagant workout facilities and gyms that are set up specifically for Instagram, where it has special lighting and all of these different amenities and cameras and so forth to make it really easy for you to be able to photograph yourself doing certain things while like lifting weights. Unbelievable. And those gym memberships cost something like $900 or and up from there. And it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier on the things that they're spending on. And it's just interesting how they're spending their money on those things and not actually spending any money at all on the things that rich people have usually spent a lot of money on. Designer bags are out. Just wearing a workout hoodie with the gym that you go to is now the thing that they're doing. So it's the inconspicuous rich. This just basically leads me back to the whole thought of society of the spectacle, where it goes from merely being to having, and having into merely appearing. And that's where we're at right now, is that the rich people have gone through all of those stages and are now just merely appearing. It's more important to look healthy healthy and well and have wellness and portray that wellness than it is to show that you are rich. Drinking green juice is more important than wearing a diamond necklace now. Very interesting. So that's basically how the rich people have worked towards getting away from the demonization that the rest of society has put upon them for their clearly heinous behavior. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Oh, and just one last thing that I want to touch on, and I know that this is running a little bit long, already 10 minutes, so another interesting thing that is also a part of all of this, and I think I want to do an in-depth video on this whole situation because there's just so much information here that it deserves its own video, like a good one, and not just a vlog video like this off-the-cuff thing. Another thing that's going on is, if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of food deserts all in poor communities. Now, these food deserts have resulted in a lot of poorer people gaining weight and just generally being unhealthy and unfit. So rich people are seeing it as a status symbol for them to be more healthy and to be more fit, so they can demonize people that aren't healthy and aren't fit for just being lazy and not trying hard enough, when it's financially easier for the rich people to actually be healthy and fit, whereas the people that aren't wealthy end up in these food deserts and have to eat nothing but junk food and Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's for days and days on end. So yeah, this is a really big issue. It's a really interesting topic, and I'd love to talk about more of it. Definitely leave your comments in the comment section below, and check me out on Patreon. Every dollar helps fund this show, because I'm definitely not rich, and I wish that I actually lived on this lake. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.